Good morning, Tanya Hoskin here, counsellor with the Thalassemia and Sickle Cell Society of New South Wales. Welcome to part 2 of a series on boundaries I'm doing. I hope you found the first one helpful. Perhaps you watched it and you're interested in how to set some boundaries. Maybe you had some insight into some areas of your life where you perhaps could do with some firmer boundaries. So let's get started. I wanted to share this with you. No is a complete sentence. Lots of people when setting boundaries find it really hard because, what if they say, why not? They kind of get lost in the reasoning behind their boundary. And I really like this quote because you don't actually have to justify to anyone why you're setting a boundary. You can just say no. And I know that there's going to be lots of people that really struggle with that idea. So let it just sit there and be in the background, but know that you don't need to justify any boundaries that you set to anyone. You get to decide where your boundaries are and who and where you set them. Okay, so before we get into the steps to setting a boundary, the kind of pre-work is to get really clear with yourself about where and who you're setting a boundary with. It's really important that you get a lot of clarity before you go out and set the boundary, because again, that's where you can kind of get lost if you're not clear within yourself what it is that you want. That's where you can get lost within yourself if you're not clear on the exacts of the boundary. So this is a really basic example that I've put up here, but I think it's really helpful to show the variables of a boundary. So kids playing with a ball inside, you might want to set a boundary around that. It might be because you've got things that break in the lounge room that are valuable or important or special to you and you don't want them to break. It might be that it's really noisy and kind of invades your sense of peace and tranquility at home. It might just be that you'd like to read in the lounge room, and with the kids playing ball you find that really hard, and they can play ball somewhere else. So getting clear on what it is that you're setting the boundary around. So it might be thinking about what type of ball is it. Is it only basketballs and footballs and things like that, but those really soft, squishy ones are okay? Is it particular rooms within the house? Is it just in the lounge room or living rooms? Are you okay with the kids playing with their ball in the bedroom? Or is it the whole house that no balls are allowed? Is it certain times of the day? Like, are you okay in the morning when they're full of energy and they're kind of ruckusing around for them to play with the ball? But at 5 o'clock when you're trying to do dinner and people are doing homework and, perhaps people's patience and moods aren't maybe as good as the morning, that's when you don't want the balls being played with inside. And does the boundary apply to everyone or someone in particular? So this might be something you need to think about if you've got children of different ages. Are you setting this boundary for the 7 and 10-year-old? But the 2-year-old, you're okay with them playing with their balls inside. So getting really clear with yourself so that when you communicate it to your children, you're really clear, and they, you might say, no playing balls in the lounge room, and they start playing with it in their bedroom, and they say, well, Mum, you said no, not in the lounge room. You didn't say the bedroom. So the clearer you can be in communicating it, the easier it is going to be to set. Okay. So step number 1, communicate the boundary. So with the ball example, no balls to be thrown or bounced in the house. And you might like to actually add on to that at any time. There was a bit actually that I remember now that I was going to add to the previous screen, and that is around if you're setting a boundary, for instance, in this example with your children, that you and your partner or your husband or wife or whatever are relatively on the same page. And that just helps the kids be really clear on where you guys stand, and that you kind of stand together, so that, you know, you don't set a boundary and then they do it when your husband or wife is home with them and end up breaking something. So if you can be consistent on that and discuss that before you implement the boundary, that really helps the kids feel really secure in you guys making the decision and following through with it together. Stops more conflict occurring between you and your partner as well. The kids don't kind of play you off against each other. Okay, and I've got another example here. And this one's a bit different, and I want to show you the difference as we go with this one. So this is in the first video, I use the example of someone's dad from the soccer club asking you to do canteen duty because another mum, Susan, couldn't do it on Sunday morning, and you saying yes. So this is when someone asks you to do something in addition to your current commitments, you respond with, I'll have a think about it and let you know, or I'll get back to you, that you don't commit to anything in the moment. And that just gives you some time to actually sit and think about how that's going to affect you, whether you actually have time, whether you actually want to do it, rather than this automatic response of saying yes and being available and committing to things. It could be with your kids even. Kids ask you something, can I do this? Can I go to this person's house? You know, can we do this on the weekend? I'll have a think and I'll let you know, so that it buys you time to actually consider what your needs might be. Step 2 is communicate the consequence. So with our boundaries, we need consequences. And some of these are good and some of them bad, like all consequences. So with the ball example, if balls are thrown or bounce in the house, I'll take the ball away for 24 hours. So this needs to be communicated, I might add, when you communicate the boundary. So going back to that first step, so no balls to be thrown or bounced in the house at any time. I'm going to add that on. If balls are thrown or bounced in the house, I will take them away for 24 hours and then you can have them back. It doesn't have to, I guess in that example, you can see that I'm not having to use a really loud voice or get really angry about it. It's just a simple fact. We don't throw balls in the house. If you do, I'm going to take your ball away. You try again the next day. Helps you stay calm and centered without having to escalate and, you know, end up exploding like we discussed in the first video. So the second one is more you're communicating the consequence to yourself rather than the outside person. So if you do commit to the canteen duty on Sunday morning, what are the consequences for you? Will you get overwhelmed, stressed, run down, have no time for the things that you were planning on doing on Sunday morning? Maybe it's even that you were really looking forward to having family time. And that this overwhelm and stress and feeling run down has a flow-on effect. So you can say yes to everything if you want. But the chances are that if your walls of your boundary are coming in on you and you're, you know, either exploding or imploding, this has a flow-on effect to other aspects of your life that may be really important to you and may be more important to you than, you know, canteen duty at the soccer club. So this one you really have to communicate to yourself. The reason why I'm not committing to something straight away is so that, you know, I don't end up feeling this way, and then it then doesn't have a flow-on effect to other aspects of my life. Okay, step 3, be consistent. Kids are like scientists. They're always testing to see what will happen. So your job is to be consistent. The more consistent you will be, the less testing they will need to do. So kids will throw the ball and they will test. Is mum serious about this? Does dad really mean that he's going to take it away? Let's see. What if I just bounce it a little bit? What if I, you know, close the door? What if, you know, I do it on a Friday night when I know perhaps there's, you know, people don't really have the energy So your job is to be really consistent with your boundaries. And the more consistent early on you can be, the quicker the kids or whoever it is that you're setting a boundary will be, setting a boundary with, will respond to it. With example 2, yes, the less work you'll have to do, the more consistent you are. And remember, it may take some time for you to set your new boundary and for it to become second nature. It's okay if you don't get it right the first time. You might find yourself committing to something and later on going, hang on, I just said yes automatically. I really don't want to do that, or I actually don't have the energy for that. It's okay to go back and say, look, sorry, I committed to that. I don't have the time, or it's not something I'm able to do right now. And or, you know, a reminder for yourself for next time. So know that it's okay. It's going to take some work, especially if you're used to saying yes to a lot of things. Okay, and step 4, follow through. Now this one is really important too. I feel like I've said that for all the steps. You need to follow through. If you don't follow through with your consequence, what ends up happening is you kind of, for the ball example, you know, it's a bit like saying I'm going to count to 3 and you never get to 3. Or you get to 3 and then there's another chance. You're going to get exhausted and worked up and frustrated, and the other person is going to be really okay. So following through is about taking care of yourself and kind of respecting yourself enough to hold that boundary with that person. So you need to take the ball away. And again, I suggest the first time, second time, third time, the kids are going to test you on it. The more you can be consistent and follow through with the consequence, the quicker they'll learn that if they throw or bounce the ball, that you'll take it away. With the second example, get back to the person within a reasonable time. If the kids have asked you something and you said, yeah, let me have a think about it, I'll get back to you, get back to them. Actually have a think about it. But remember, you don't have to justify or give a reason for your answer. So with the canteen, Judy, you can just say, sorry, John, I'm unable to help out with that this weekend. Or, no, sorry, not this time. And with the kids, same thing. You don't have to give a reason why they can't have their friends over on the weekend, or why you're not going to buy them whatever it is that they want. And actually, the less you go into that, the easier it is for you to hold your boundary. You know, children in particular are very good at finding the loopholes or the little ways in. So the less you give them and the firmer you are on your no, the easier it will be for you. And that comes back to a boundary, holding a boundary around not having to justify your answer or your response, and looking after your own well-being. So be prepared for setbacks. Your awareness around your boundaries will build over time. Sometimes this can be a bit of a, can feel like a never-ending thing. You set a boundary here, and then in the process you've let one down here, so then you have to look at that one. So remember that setting boundaries is an act of looking after yourself, and that's okay. It's not something that a lot of people are taught, that it's okay to look after yourself and put your own needs forward. And especially as we become parents, you know, we tend to give a lot to our children, but it's okay to put your needs first. And no one is going to set them for you. It's not going to happen that your 6-year-old is going to, you know, hop into bed and say, look, I really want to store bedtime and I'd really like to get up, you know, 7 or 8 times for random things that I don't need. But I can see you're really tired, Mum, and I know you're looking forward to doing your knitting, so I'm just going to lie in bed tonight. That's not going to happen. So you're going to have to set them for yourself. Boundaries have layers, similar to what I just said about, you know, you're going to have to keep going back to them and keep moving forward. it can be hard and even nerve-wracking to set a boundary, especially if you're not someone who's used to doing it and saying no. And it's good to remind yourself of why you're setting them in the first place. Like if you, for example, set the bedtime, that's it, good night, this is how it's going to be, done. You know, take some time to notice how you feel having some extra time to yourself to do the things that you enjoy doing, or to get some prep done for the next day so that's a bit easier for you, or just to have some time with your partner or husband or wife and just, you know, connect after the day. So really take some time to notice how nice that feels, and that can sometimes then help you in setting those boundaries that you perhaps feel a bit guilty about, or, you know, uncaring, or whatever it is. Know that you're actually doing it, and it's a really healthy part of relationships, really important for your kids as well. So take some time to notice that, and really value your own well-being and enjoyment. You deserve to enjoy your life and to be healthy in all aspects. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that's your responsibility, and that comes back to you needing to set the boundaries in your life. So I hope you have found these videos helpful. And if you have any questions, or you can see a boundary in your life that really could do with some work and you want to kind of workshop it, please reach out, give me a call or send me an email, and we can work through it together. Okay, take care.